Welcome back, my friend, to the Quick Focus Blueprint program. And today we are going to improve your focus so you could have a better memory. And this is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. Many of you know that I grew up with learning challenges and I had this brain injury and such. But the other thing that really affected me early on, that put me on this path, was my grandmother. When she got older and she was at the end of her life, she had Alzheimer's and she didn't remember who I was. And so this idea of memory is very personal for me. When I tell people, yes, it's good to remember facts and formulas and figures and names and all that, that is important. But it's also very important to remember these three things. Remembering your loved ones. You know, in my example with my grandmother who helped raise me, which was, this very special person in my life. And so I think it's important in your life to remember your loved ones. I think it's also important to remember your life. So loved ones and life. And the third one's going to start with L also. But when I talk about your life, I mean about just every day, those magical moments that you share. And most people don't remember things in their life, even something simple like what they had for breakfast. And finally, the third L are your lessons, because I think a lot of people repeat certain mistakes over and over again. And we've all heard this phrase about insanity, that insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a different result. And I have a friend named Mary Lou, and we were talking, and she was like, right, it's not insanity when people do the same thing over and over again expecting different results. It's just the results of a bad memory, a poor memory. And I do believe that sometimes people will repeat mistakes. It could be in their health, like maybe they'll eat that same bad food, or maybe in a relationship, they'll date that same person that maybe wasn't really good for them, or maybe financially or in their business, they'll make similar mistakes over and over again. And part of it might be because they don't remember the lesson that came out of it the first time. And in life, lessons tend to repeat themselves until they are learned. And so what I want to talk about in this lesson is really sensitize you to and get you to focus on this thing called your memory. Because I think one of the best ways of improving your memory is just to be aware of it, to have the conscious attention towards it. And I always tell people that you do not have a good or bad memory. There's no such thing as a good or bad memory. There's a trained memory and an untrained memory. And so what I want to do with you is give you a framework for improving your memory with three parts. And some of you have heard this before. And if you have, don't go into just default mode and just like, oh, I got that. Remember, focus. Focus is a muscle and it grows stronger with use, but it's use it or lose it. So I want you to really focus on the nuances of this, because there's a difference between dabbling in something and really mastering something. And your memory is something you really want to master, because that's really our identity. If you forgot half of the things that you know about yourself, about other people, you forgot half the names of the people, you forgot half of the words that you know, or half of all your education, you wouldn't be the same person. And I know this, and you know this also, if you know somebody who has suffered from, brain aging challenges like dementia or Alzheimer's, it's just they're not the same. And so the framework I'm going to share with you really works because, and I haven't taken this approach before, because it gets you to focus. And what I want you to remember is mom. And again, this is the mother of all memory techniques, MOM. And the reason why it works, I've never explained it this way, is because it gets you to focus. So let's take, for example, remembering names. The thing with remembering names is a lot of people don't remember names because they're not focused on the person. They're not focused on the face. They're not focused on their voice. They're not focused on their identity. They're not seeking to understand them. And also, part of it also is they have no reason to focus, or at least no conscious reason for themselves. And so let's say you have trouble remembering someone's name. And the example I talk about is if somebody has $100,000 and they're going to gift it to you or your favorite charity tax-free, if you just remember the name of the next stranger you meet, most likely most people are going to remember that person's name. And now notice that it had nothing to do with your capabilities. It had everything to do with whether you wanted to or not. you wanted to or not. So the M, the first M in mom, stands for motivation. Now break down that word, motive to take action, motive action, right? Motivation. What is your motive for being focused? And so I believe, and I've talked about this in the program, that one of the best ways of training your focus is to ask questions. Ask questions, because questions are the answer. And so ask yourself, why do I want to remember this person's name? And again, this is the fundamentals, but that's what this program is all about, getting really good at the fundamentals. And so why do you want to remember this person's name? And then give me a couple of reasons right now. Shout it out. It's okay. It doesn't matter if you're driving or at the gym. People assume that you're listening on headphones, you're talking to somebody anyway. Why is it important to remember someone's name? Maybe you could make a new friend. You could create a new relationship. You could show somebody some respect. You could do some business with them. Maybe it's just to practice, right? Because as the phrase goes, what you practice in private, you are rewarded for in public. And so you show up and you remember someone's name because you got to practice these tools you learned in this quick focus blueprint program. And here's the phrase that you want to remember. Reasons reap results. Reasons reap results. You want to give yourself a reason to focus, a reason to remember. And so ask yourself why. Start with why. And so I would recommend that. So that's the motivation. And notice that when you have that question, you have an answer like, oh, I could create a new friend, or I could show them respect. You have a reason. All of a sudden, your focus starts to sharpen and you start to really pay attention. And that really is what the O stands for in mom. The O in mom stands for observation. Observation. And this is really what focus boils down to. It's about being present with somebody, about being present in the moment with somebody. And so a lot of people, when they forget something, where they put their keys, and that's a focus issue, a complete focus issue. Imagine though instead that, let's say you have your keys and you just are on default, right? When we're on default, we don't pay attention. We're not in the present. And so, for example, the difference would be, let's say you walk into your home and you put your keys and you throw it on the coffee table. Imagine for a split second, the coffee table explodes. As soon as the keys hit the table, it explodes, right? Or it melts like lava right through the kitchen counter, or your desk ablaze, it sets it on fire. Something silly that would never happen, and it takes a split second, but your mind will remember that because it's unusual, because there's emotion, because there's action, because it's illogical. And these are some of the principles that if you've gone through our quick recall masterclass that we talk about. But just doing that simple act, for instance, makes it more observational, meaning you're going to focus and concentrate it even for a split second. And then when you need to leave and you're like, oh, what did I do with my keys? Oh, I blew up the coffee table. And so this is a simple example, but you could train your observation to pay attention, because a lot of people, they blame their retention when their memory goes bad, but it's not your retention, it's your attention. And so when it comes to observation, when you're meeting someone for the first time, for example, just look at them. Look at them and just notice, look at their hair, look at their nose, look at their eyes, and really take it in and pay attention to them. Also, pay attention not only to what you see, but what you hear. And the key is to listen. And remember, when you scramble the letters of the word listen, it also spells the word silent. And so one of the keys to better observation, which leads to better focus, obviously, is to really train your observation. Train it. And it's like a muscle. The more you use it, the better and stronger it gets. And I can't stress that enough. Most people don't pay attention. They're going on something like Google every single day, but they don't remember, if I was to ask them what colors the letters are, the last time they saw it. Or they work with money all the time and they're dealing with currency, and I ask them, what's on the back of a dime? And so you could hone your observation by really listening and just being silent with somebody. And then finally, the last M in mom stands for the mechanics. And these are the tips and the techniques and the tools that we teach in our quick learning programs, and on how to learn another language, on how to give a speech without notes, on how to speed read and remember people's names. And I do believe half of success is psychology and mindset. So just listening to this program right now and being part of it, you're looking at it, MOM. Motivation means just caring about somebody, and the O, observation, just means being present. And so I think the art of memory, even the art of training your focus, is really the art of being a better human, meaning that motivation is meaning you care, just care about somebody and go deeper in your level of caring for somebody. And then the O stands for observation, which just means really pay attention to them, really observe them, really take them in, really make them feel seen and heard. Seek first to understand, then to be understood, because that's really what people want. They don't really want your gifts, they want your presence, right, which is another word for gift, right? But they just want you to be there with them. And so I think that the really good memory experts out there, I'm not talking about people like myself that teach this, I'm talking about people who have a really honed memory for remembering things about people, their birthday, anniversaries, conversations, their hobbies, the things that they're really passionate about, are people that employ this. And sometimes it's just their nature, and it can be nurtured also through training. And so I encourage you right now in the comments section, put in there, how are you going to use MOM? How are you going to get more motivated to focus and remember things? How are you going to be more present and really hone your observation skills? And which of the mechanical skills, the techniques, if you will, are you going to be employing moving forward? And put that in the comments. And thank you so much for listening. I am so honored that we're on this journey together, and have an incredible rest of your day.